Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me on this Thursday afternoon. First of all, let me just say apologies for anybody that was due to be watching this on Tuesday. We had a last minute thing that meant we had to just postpone it by 48 hours. But thank you very much for being here. And thank you very much for registering, because you might have registered your interest in this webinar and you're watching it now. However, you weren't able to make it at 2 o'clock. So thanks very much. It is exactly 2 o'clock. So without further ado, let's get on. So first of all, a little bit about me. Why am I the right person to be talking about what you can do with a franchise and specifically a property franchise? So my name is Chris Kirkwood. I am the franchise director here at Sourced. Before I started with Sourced and helping Sourced to grow, I founded and ran my own businesses across lots of different business sectors. So I've got experience building businesses, and usually the businesses that I built were from scratch. And then what I've done with those businesses is I've then taken them to a place where I've sold those businesses on. Now, I'm only going to sell a business if it's profitable. And so I found myself when I first started in property with a pot of money. So I was running these businesses, they were creating cash flow, they were creating pots of investment capital for me, and I didn't know what to do with it, but I knew that property was the right thing to do. So I started investing in property, and over the last, I can't remember how long I've been in property now, 12, 15 years, something like that. I've built a portfolio, I've sold properties, I've gone through the entire cycle from buying a property from as little as £55,000 to being involved in developments that are up to £150 million GDV. So I've gone through lots of different scales of property deals. I've executed lots of different strategies as well. It's not as if all of those properties that I've done from £55,000 to 150 million have been the same strategy. You've got rent to rents, you've got HMOs, you've got lots of different ways of purchasing property, lots of different structures, lots of different strategies of putting things together that I've done personally for myself. And because of that experience, I then took that into the franchise, and we've created a franchise that shows people lots of different ways for making money out of property. And I have transparency over all the work that the franchisees are doing. So lots of different strategies, and some strategies that I've never done myself, but I've learned about, I've helped people execute. Because essentially, when you get into property and you look at it at the level that we look at it, and we encourage our franchisees to look at it, it's essentially a combination of two things. It's a combination of contracts and finance. And if you understand what contracts are available to you and you understand what finance is available to you, it's up to your creativity in the way that you put those two things together to come up with a solution to make money out of property. So I've been with Sourced for a number of years now, since just after the inception of Sourced, actually. That's when the founder, Steve, asked me to come on board and help them build this ecosystem. And you can see across, when you look at our website, and this is an image of our website, that we've got a lot going on. We've got five different parts of the business, all trying to achieve something within property. But essentially, it comes down to just two. Two parts of our business are the main features. The first one, and the most important one, is the franchise business. And then the second thing is the Sourced Capital. And Sourced Capital help our franchisees and can assist our franchisees in getting deals funded. So they're a funding platform. So what's Sourced looked like so far? Well, the concept of it was in January 2017, and the franchise was actually launched in September 2017. We hit 20 franchisees pretty quickly because, as we're going to get into a little bit later on, the benefits of being part of a franchise are different to doing something on your own. We'll get into a bit more detail on that later. The funding platform got FCA approval in August 2018. So we started that pretty quickly after the franchise started. And then for the next couple of years, capital was launched. We hit 40 franchisees. We've continued with our own developments. And that's really important, because we're not just looking at, we're not people that have done developments in the past, done like one development, and now we're trying to sell ourselves as being the people to go to find out how to go through that same process. We are continually doing our own developments. We have a commitment to build our own portfolio. We're still involved in property. So we're, like everybody else, we're still learning and passing that knowledge on to our franchisees in property. At the end of last year, the repayment rate for Sourced Capital was at 100%. So, and that remains to this day at 100% still. And then by February 2021, we hit 130 franchisees as we continue to grow, because people are interested in the franchise structure. So exactly what is the return on investment in a property franchise? That's what this webinar is about. So let's have a look at this right now. So setting up on your own, if you were going to set yourself up as a property business on your own. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about, and it's kind of intangible, but I see people making this mistake time and time and time again, is to think, I've got a pot of money, I want to make money out of property. And they for some reason think that property is this completely different thing from building a business. But if you want to continually make money from property, then you are starting a business. And therefore, you need to consider all the normal things if you were starting a business in a different industry sector. But when it comes to property, people sort of lose that perspective. They just look at property as property. Well, it's not. You're starting a business, and therefore you need to be structured in a similar way. So let's look at the costs of starting up a business. Well, the first one has got to be to take care of yourself. As Richard Branson says, you've got to look after your downside. And your downside has got to be that you need to have your salary covered for a period of time to make sure that you're going to be comfortable while you're trying to build this business, because you don't want to be putting all your time and effort and energy into building a business, but actually you can't stop thinking about paying the mortgage at the end of the month. You need to be comfortable for a period of time. Now, that can be achieved in a number of different ways. You could, for example, have a pot of cash just sitting there and you work on the property business full time. Or you could divide your time. You could work part-time somewhere else, providing you that ongoing cash flow to take care of your liabilities. And then you've got part-time to put into property and to put into growing your property business. It's a bit boring, but stationary, it needs to be included as an upgoing cost. And as part of that, I would definitely include marketing and your website. So all of those things, because if you're doing this on your own, nobody knows about you. So you've got to get out there. You've got to start marketing yourself. You've got to go to as many networking events as you possibly can. And you need to have those business cards to hand out to people. Website. This is a contentious one because personally, the website is a completely different thing, completely different marketing tool. Now, what needs to happen when you build a website for yourself is that you build a website, and a lot of people think, I've got a website, I'm legit, I'm an operating business, this is cool. Leads are going to come flooding into me now because I've got a website. But actually, you need a separate budget for the website to start driving traffic to that website to generate you leads. So a website shouldn't just be seen as an information tool. If you're going to make the most of the website, then you need to drive traffic to it and you need to generate leads from that website. All of that is going to come at a cost. And that is going to increase your marketing budget, because when people say about marketing, what they're generally thinking about is, producing leaflets and then going to distribute those leaflets in a certain area. But if you've got a website and you want to make that commitment to it, then you need to drive traffic to that website as well. And that takes ongoing money to put into that. So you need business capital as well, because not only have you got to take care of your salary, but there's no point in having, a month's worth of marketing money, but not being able to satisfy the marketing in 6 months' time, because this is property. It takes a long time to turn around an individual deal. In most cases, there are shortcuts that you can take, which we teach our franchisees about. But in most cases, if you think you're going to buy a property, refurb the property, and then sell that property, you're easily looking at 9 to 12 months in order to do that. So your first deal, you might not actually make any money out of for a year. So you need to have those costs covered for that period of time in order to not allow them to hold you back. And then when you're looking at property as well, you're probably going to need some investment capital. It's not absolutely necessary. You can structure the way that you grow your business without the investment capital. But in most cases, you're going to want some investment capital to put into the deals yourself, either if you're going through funding, if you're attracting funding from elsewhere, or if you're looking to make money as quickly as you possibly can and looking to scale your property business up and go for those bigger deals instead of looking after your cash flow, you're going to need some investment capital too. And then intellectual capital. You're going to have to put some costs aside to grow the amount that you know about what is available to you. Because the worst thing that you can do is start your business without any education. If you start your business without any education, then potentially lots of opportunities could be slipping you by. And you have no idea, because you're not educated to the right level to be able to identify the opportunity and then execute that opportunity and make money out of it. So setting up with a franchise, how does that cost structure differ in comparison to setting up on your own? So obviously you still need your cash flow taken care of. That's not something that a franchise is going to help you out with. You need to have a period of time where you're covered and you're comfortable so that you can focus on setting up the property side of the business. You'll need some degree of business capital as well, although nowhere near as much. As you can see, I haven't included website marketing, I haven't included stationery, because that should all be provided for you in those franchise costs. And we do for our franchisees. We don't set up a specific website for each franchisee, because what we have is we have that central website that I showed you before, and each of our franchisees can get leads out of that central website. You also could need investment capital. It's something that you need to take into consideration, because you might want to invest in your own deals. Again, the bigger that investment capital, the faster you can scale. If you haven't got that investment capital there, then the intellectual capital that you gain as being part of the franchise will show you a way to build that pot to then make decisions to spend that money or invest that money in your own deals. And then, of course, the one thing that a franchise does have as a cost that you wouldn't have on your own is the franchise fee. Now, like I said, most people that come into property, when they're looking at how they're going to build their property business, don't look at property as a business, because in most cases, when you're building a business from the ground up, and I've been there, I've done it, most people will look at the business and think, right, let's find out how we can generate cash flow and let's build on that cash flow. Let's get the business turning over something, and then we'll go after that dream contract our plan is to go after that dream contract in 4 or 5 years' time. Now, most people that get into property have found that dream deal and they want to go after it straight away. Well, that dream deal might be the development of 10 houses on a field. And you might have some understanding that, it has been granted planning permission, and you think that that's going to allow you to get that done with relatively little problem. But actually, that's just one of the hurdles that you need to overcome in order to get that deal done. There are lots of other things that you need to take into consideration, and the time that it takes to get paid from that development might be 2.5, 3 years. So again, how are you going to look after your business if you're going to devote all of your time and effort into getting that deal done? How are you going to look after yourself in that period of 2 or 3 years? Now, what we do with our franchisees when they first come on board is they sit down with their support person and they have a conversation about how they're going to build their cash flow. They might have their cash flow taken care of already. Fantastic. But if they haven't, we need to focus on cash flow to take care of their liabilities, to then start building their business as if it was a business in any other sector. Because we look at this from an objective, sensible point of view, not just, oh my God, you've got a deal that could get you £2 million, but in effect, the likelihood of you executing that deal that's going to get you £2 million is less than 1%, because you just don't have the structure or the knowledge to get it to that place. So the first thing that we focus on is the cash flow. You can see from this pretty rudimentary graphic that when you're looking at the cash flow, if you look on the left-hand side, the gray boxes are something like trading property deals on. There are other ways that you can generate cash flow, but I'm just using trading in this example. So the franchisee would find deals. They would know that that deal is a good opportunity because they've done their due diligence on that deal, and then they sell that deal onto an investor. And they might make £4,000, £5,000, £6,000 from each one of those sales. Now, in this example, they're only selling one of those deals per month. So they find it, they do their due diligence, they secure it, they sell it to an investor, and they make one fee per month. What that will do is that will take care of your liabilities, your monthly liabilities, and then it will allow you to build a pot of money or increase your pot of money to then go after bigger deals. And when you're looking at bigger deals, you're then looking at making returns of, if you imagine an absolutely bog standard flip. So you buy a property, you do it up, and then you sell it on. £25,000 per profit per flip, something like that. You're then finding this kind of property, and instead of trading that deal onto somebody else, you're taking that for yourself and you're making money off that yourself. Now, what that's going to do is, if you're still doing the trading at the same time, that's going to increase your investment pot even more. And at that point, because of the increased investment pot that you've created for yourself, and because of the increased knowledge that you've been taking care of all the way through that process, because while you're doing that and while you're building that up, you're not only looking at trading properties, you're not only looking at flipping properties, but you're going through the education of learning what the next stage is going to be so that you can then deliver on that next stage. So you've done your education. So when you find that dream deal, you're now in a much better place to be able to deliver on that dream deal. Now, looking at that graphic that I just showed you, if you imagine that you were going to trade 11 deals in your first year, and the profit per deal that you traded was £3,000. In the first 12 months, you'd make £33,000 turnover. That makes sense, right? And in that same 12-month period, you then worked up to doing 4 flips, finding 4 properties that you could find, refurbish, and sell on for a profit. £25,000 profit per flip, £100,000 in total. And then you do 1 conversion as well. It's going to be a small conversion because the profit is only £80,000. We're doing a conversion at the moment here at Sourced HQ where the profit is about 10 times that. So I've been very modest in putting these numbers together for each one of them, for trades, flips, and conversions. But you think about how you're going to build that sensibly. That doesn't mean that you're going to be lacking turnover, because just the 3 ways that I've just described, and building that up from flipping to then looking at trading property, from trading property to then looking at flipping to then doing a conversion, can still net you a huge amount of turnover. And if you were to ask yourself right now, what kind of turnover would I be happy with through my property business? Well, a lot of people, I think, would go for the 6 figures and say £100,000. That's what they're looking to earn. If you do it correctly, you've got a much better chance, not only of getting to that level of 6 figures, but also having a sustainable property business because you've done it in the right way. Because what most people do when they look at this pipeline is they just go straight for the blue side, because that's a big number and that's really exciting. But in most cases, that means that this is their income statistic at the end of that time, because they're not educated, they don't know how to do it, they haven't got somebody to help guide them and help make decisions to focus on their cash flow. They're just gone after this one big thing and it's burnt them because it's taken a lot longer, or it's just fallen through. And they've put all that time, effort, and money into it and nothing happens. So this is a really interesting question, I think, how long till I break even? Because as you can hear, we are not prescriptive about what people do. Somebody that joins our network franchise, we don't tell them that they can only do X, Y, or Z. What we do is we sit down with them, we look at their personal situation, we look at their financial situation, and then we come up with a plan. And that plan has been devised by them and their support person. Now, that person has obviously got an investment into the franchise, but what they're focusing on and what their cash flow situation is like will depend on how much money they're going to make, because it might be the case that the most pertinent strategy for them to go after is to look at this big stuff, is to look at the bigger deals, and they might not make any cash flow for the first 18 months. But that might be exactly the right thing to do, and that's what they need help with. It might be that they need to start trading deals in order to take care of their cash flow. But in each one of those 2 situations, the time it takes for them to break even is going to be completely different. And therefore, this is a good question for us to lead into the answer of what we do is we work with you. We work with you. We find out what you're trying to achieve. We find out how much you've got to invest. We come up with a plan for how you're going to do that. And then we put it into place. And then you've got the backup and support of your support person to help you do that. So what you're going to focus on in year 1 is going to be learning. If you're doing it on your own, you need to be putting time and effort and investment into learning. We talked about those business expenses or the intellectual capital expenses. So you're going to be spending a lot of money on your initial learning. You're going to be going out to networking events. You're going to be spending money on assessing deals. I'll get into the costs a little bit later on, but I know there's a person that is actually quite local to us at Sourced HQ, and he will assess a deal for somebody for £440 per deal assessed. We obviously don't charge anything for our support people to assess your deals. You have lots of conversations with agents and you have lots of conversations with brokers. So that's what you're going to be spending your first year doing, building your business, building the amount of contacts that you've got. But what generally tends to happen is that people seem to be skilled in one of these two ways. They either seem to be skilled in finding investors, or they seem to be skilled at finding deals. It's fairly rare to see somebody that's very, very good at both of those things, that can put the overall situation together. And a lot of people that I speak to have been in property for a little while, and they've tried to do it on their own, and they've hit a brick wall where they come to us with lots of deals, or they come to us with lots of investors, and they just can't put the whole 360-degree process together where they're trying to close deals and actually make money. As part of a franchise, like I said, what we do is we create a strategic plan, understanding your position. And we do this after you've been on induction. And the reason that we do it after you've been on induction is because we give you transparency over all of the strategies that you can choose from. So we wait until you're making a more informed decision, and we help you with that informed decision. Look at the ways that we can help you build. Again, you're going to build a network because that's a very sensible thing to do. But this network that you're building with us is part of that plan. This network that you're building when you come on board with the franchise has got a strategic element to it. It's not just going out there and trying to meet as many people as you can. It's meeting the right kind of people. At that point, you start working on a funnel to create leads for yourself. And again, this is strategic. So you're looking at the specific kind of leads that you need in order to help you facilitate the goals that you've set yourself in order to move up to the next stage. And ongoing, you will check in with your support person. So when you first join with us, we have a very structured way, a very structured amount that the support person will be in touch with you to check in on you, to make sure that you're making the right decisions, and to make sure that they can't help you out with anything. You're going to continue your education, again, as part of a franchise. The education and all of the courses are free to our franchisees. So they can choose which courses they come onto. And actually, they can do each course more than once, because this is a statistic that I'm sure most trainers will know. In a classroom environment, you leave with 30% of the information. So out of everything that you've seen in that classroom environment, you leave with 30% of that information. So actually, if you come on a course 3 times, you've got a chance of knowing most of what has been presented to you. But you continue that education piece, because you're not only looking at delivering on what you're looking at and where your goals are now, but you're looking at what your goals are going to be and what you're going to be moving on to next. So you do your training on that before you move into trying to facilitate those goals. Realistically, as part of a franchise, we would set a goal to break even within 6 months' time. And how you're going to achieve that completely depends on you as an individual, your skill set, the amount of money that you have, and how much time you can put into the franchise. And then after that, we're just going to be building your investment pot, because the more money you have in your own investment pot, the more opportunities that are out there that you can take advantage of. How do you maximize your return on investment? Well, your regular activities should include your training sessions, weekly group sessions, and networking, all within Source. So our group sessions are held on a weekly basis, and they're held locally by your local support person. You'll have a weekly one-to-one with the support person. There's a weekly webinar hosted by HQ, including by Source Capital. And then you've got weekly group Zooms, meetings and sessions upon request. So if you need to get in touch with your support person, but they might not be answering their phone because they might be hosting your training session, you actually have a link where you can book yourself into their calendar, into their diary, to make sure you can put that time aside to have a conversation with them. And then you've got decision analysis and feedback from an expert. So again, all the deals that you find, you pass across to your support person to look at in our bespoke CRM system. They can assess them, and they can come back to you, not only with whether you've done structured the deal correctly, but also suggestions of way that you can structure that deal better, as well as assessing all the due diligence that you've done to make it, to give you another set of eyes on that project to see whether it's worth your time in taking that forward. So build your property business and create financial freedom. Like I said, Source Capital is part of our business. And Source Capital can fund up to 100% of the purchase price and 100% of the build cost, depending on the deal, depending on how the deal looks, and whether you're going to put any money into it or how the structure works. We assess each deal on its own merits, and then we can fund up to 100% of both the purchase price and the build cost. And actually, we've got a deal going through right now where we are funding 100% of the build cost and 100% of the purchase price. Source capital as well, it's worth saying, is only available to franchisees. So in order to take advantage of that, you need to be a franchisee. And this is a testimonial from one of the franchisees who has gone through source capital and actually borrowed. So what we do for our network guys is we send them a bunch of leads on all different property strategies: rent-to-rent, commercial, planning, below market value, portfolio investments, refurbishments, apartments, assisted sales, lots of different ways lots of different leads, that we pass across to them for them to then analyze and take forward and decide whether they want to try and purchase that property or whether they want to sell that property, whatever is down on their goals. Now, if they do decide to trade, we've got a database of over 130,000 investors that we can trade that onto. Now, like I said to you earlier, most people come to us because they either can't find property or they can't find investors. So immediately we've remedied both of those situations, because if you can't find properties, we're sending you property leads. If you can't find investors, we've got 130,000 investors that will help, that you can market to, and then you can sell deals to in order to make money, or you can look for investors to work alongside you, to JV with, so that they're the money that is coming into the deal once you found the deal. Lots of different ways that you can use those investors, but we have already spent a huge amount of time, effort, and money building those databases and creating those lead structures that come into you from us. A couple of examples of some of the source franchisees. So I've chosen two different franchisees that are after two very, very different strategies and structures. So this is Shahid. Shahid sells deals to people. So Shahid finds property deals and he sells them on. He is very, very good at selling property deals on. He would not be the right kind of person and candidate to look at a big development site and take that big development site forward, because he just doesn't have he has the character that absolutely suits driving sales on a day-to-day basis. So part of that comes into our consideration of how we're going to do it. We're not trying to crowbar Shahid and his personality into doing bigger property deals, because it just wouldn't work. We work with him, we create a plan, and Shahid does very, very well from selling particularly serviced accommodation deals that are in and around Manchester. He sells a huge amount of those deals per month and makes a great cash flow. In fact, the last time he came into office, he came in his in the Ferrari that he just bought. It's a Ferrari California, for anybody that's interested, which was actually my favorite Ferrari, like when I was growing up. So commercial to residential conversions. So completely different strategy here. This is the bigger stuff. This is a commercial block that we're turning into, or the franchisee Chris is turning into 14 different apartments. Now, this was right for him to look at, because he wanted to JV with somebody that had experience in order to help him facilitate this deal. And he didn't need cash flow, because he still had cash flow coming into him from another business that he owns. So again, we sat down with him and came up with a solution for him to make the most out of his investment into the franchise. Purchase price of 875, GDV of 2.2 million. The profit was huge on that deal, which is his first deal, but because he was JVing with somebody who had experience, then that was able to get funded and able to go through, because he was leaning heavily on the experience of his JV partner. So looking at the training schedule, like I said, we have training days that actually you can jump on and jump off whenever you see fit. As part of the franchise investment, that is included. So we have the upfront induction, sourcing and deal packaging course. And then after that, everything is optional. So you've got funding and investors, lease options and HMOs, support days in the north and the south, rent to rent, commercial conversions, flips and refurbs, new build developments. And actually we have a lettings course on top of this. And we also have a tax and accountancy course as well, in order to help people build their business. Because like I said to you at the beginning, this isn't just property, this is a business. And so you need to make business decisions, not just property decisions. So we put on courses to help people through that process. You can actually download our training schedule if you want to. There's a link at the bottom of this page. So if you follow that link, If you've got a pen and paper, you can write it down now. But if you follow that link, that'll take you to our training schedule, over 70 training days per year. So you'll see those other courses that I just mentioned in that training schedule and when they're going to be. So this is what it looks like. And the franchisees, each one of the franchisees can book onto that automatically. There's a link that the franchisees have where they can go into our booking system and they can book themselves onto the courses as frequently as they want to. And then looking at support. So we have local support people. The local support days hosted weekly mean that you can jump into those support days, meet the other franchisees, network, but also learn from the other franchisees' experiences and also learn from the support person, because the support person should have an element of content that is going out to the franchisees every single week. You've got monthly training events as well that I've just shown you the schedule for. You've got unlimited deal review. So like I said to you, if you're doing this on your own, you could get deal reviews as well. I've seen them advertised for £440 per deal that's reviewed. Now, from our point of view, we probably review upwards of 2,000 deals per month. So if you imagine somebody spending £440 for every one of those deals that gets reviewed, that's a huge amount of money. You've got email, phone, and video support from your support person. And that support person is your account manager. So any issues or queries that you have, you go directly to them and they can help you out. You've got one-to-one visits as well, because your support person is local. They can come out to you if you want to go and speak to an estate agent, if you want a site visit so that they can help you assess a site or assess a property, look at a refurbishment opportunity, they can come out and do that for you. And on top of that, we also have discounts on software. So because we're such an established and large network, we obviously have negotiating power. So for example, on one of the industry leading software providers for property, we get a 50% discount because of our transaction power. So exactly what does that look like from an investment point of view? So when you come on, you are recognized as part of a national brand, right? Now, if you're going to set up yourself, you're setting up from scratch. So you're putting a huge amount of money into marketing, into your website, into stationery. And that's an ongoing investment. Now with us, we take care of that for you. We build the brand. We make our brand known across the country. So you don't have that ongoing investment into the growth of your business and the growth of the brand of your business, because we're doing that for you. You'll receive an exclusive territory of 40,000 households. So you have that, and that means no other source franchisee can operate in that area unless you come up with a negotiation with them. We've got the induction training, and then we've got the ongoing training after that. We've got a proven business model and lots of success stories if you wanted to see any of them. And then we've got lots of exposure on property websites, which gets lots and lots and lots of visits every single month. So to buy into the franchise, it's only £12,500 plus VAT. Now, on top of that, your initial costs, if you remember back to one of the first slides, you would need to make sure that your salary, or your cash flow, should I say, is probably more relevant, is covered during that setup phase before you transfer into property and into the franchise full time, because you might only start off part time. And then the license fee includes property leads, investor leads, email, phone, and video support, the ongoing marketing. You've got you've got support days, and you've got lots of contact with your support person. You've obviously got access to the peer-to-peer platform in order to get your deals funded. You've got monthly training events. You've got SIN management, and that is the networking events. So if you wanted to host your own networking event, we can help you out with that. We have lots of franchisees that host their own networking events. And then we've got a huge amount of legal documents and contracts and templates that you can use that we've gathered over the years that we make available to you guys on an unlimited basis. And the cost for that is £200 per month. And then what we ask for is 5% of your net profit when you start to report that profit. And the reason for the 5% of net profit is because we want to keep our costs as low as possible. And then we only start to make money when you start to make money. So when you're reporting that net profit and you pay us out of that net profit, that's really when we start to make money out of bringing you on board as a franchisee. So we've both got investment at that point. We're both invested into your success. We both want that to help. We both want that to work. So the investment required if you're starting on your own You've got your marketing and your branding, you've got your training and continued education, you've got your investment capital, and you've got your salary. So the pot that you're probably going to need, and I'm including salary in this, so this is slightly different to the 12,500 that I just showed you, but what you're probably going to need is circa £50,000 in order to make that work. And that includes your investment capital. So let's just touch on that for a second. I didn't include investment capital in your startup costs for being part of a franchise. And the reason that I didn't include that is because we have awareness of lots of strategies to help you build that pot if you don't already have it. We know ways that you can look after your cash flow and you can build that pot from making money out of property. But you might not be aware of that. And you might be looking at the training courses. You know, you're going to focus on training courses around that big aspirational dream that you have. So you might be doing training courses for commercial conversions on new build, whereas really the training course that you should be on is the deal packaging and sourcing. Or you should be on a rent-to-rent training course because that's going to take care of your cash flow. So because of the strategies and structures that we know at the franchise, it means that your investment pot doesn't need to be as big. And because you have access to source capital, and because source capital can fund up to 100% of the purchase price and the refurb cost, again, your investment pot doesn't need to be as big as if you were doing it on your own. So ongoing costs, if you're running that business on your own, if you're generating property leads, now I know that property leads sell for about £50 on the open market. I know that investor leads sell for about £15 on the open market. You then have the computer and the CRM systems. Again, that's included as part of your franchise, but you need to have that to keep on top of how many properties you're looking at, which ones you need to keep notes, you need to keep documents, you need to have a workflow to understand what you need to do next on that property. You've obviously got your ongoing marketing costs, and you're probably going to pay for a mentor when you're starting out because you need somebody there to help to try and push you if you're doing this on your own. You're going to have funding applications that you might need to pay for. You might go to monthly training events. You might have networking management. I've still got the SIN logo there, but you might be looking at hosting your own networking, and you might need to buy contracts and documents. Now, when I added all of that up, and that includes training, and I took the training to be, just a normal sort of property training weekend, which is a few £1,000s. But if you have that commitment to your ongoing development, that could easily be in the region of £5,100 per month for that ongoing growth. Now that £5,100 compares to our £200. The £50,000 that you need to have to start up compares to our £12,500. So in terms of taking advantage of all the resources and the knowledge and the backup and the support and the training as part of a franchise, for me, as the franchise director, caveat that, I'm absolutely convinced that being part of a franchise and part of a network that works with a proven business model is absolutely the right way to go about it. It's absolutely the right way to get the right perspective, get the right education, and deliver. It's not about the education, it's about the implementation. And that's what our support team is exactly here to help you achieve. So if you've got any questions, I'll just stay on for the next 5 minutes or so and answer any questions that you might have. Please go into the Q&A box. Don't put your question in the chat box because I might not see it. But if you put it in the Q&A section, then I would definitely have to answer that. Do your legal packs cover Scotland as well? Yeah, so the legal documents that we have through Source Capital also cover Scotland, absolutely. A lot of the stuff that we have in the CRM system and the documents and templates that we have do cover Scotland. I'm not going to say all of them because I know not all of them do. So to be completely transparent and honest with you, the majority of the stuff that we have does, but by no means all of it. Good question though. I guess you're in Scotland. Let's just have a look. So we've got a question here. Thank you, Spencer. Great informative webinar. Could you explain in a bit more detail an investor lead? Yeah, so it's a good question. So if you find a property, if the strategy that you're focusing on is selling property leads, if you find a property and you want to sell that property onto an investor, so instead of you taking care of it because it's not the right thing for your cash flow, you just want to sell that lead on for an investor to buy, then that list of people that are interested in finding property deals so they can purchase property deals for like £3,000, £4,000, £5,000, £6,000 is an investor. But we've also had our franchisees who have advertised out to that investor list and looked to that investor list to fund their deals 100%. So the highest amount of funding that we've had from an investor is something like £1.2 million. And that was a purchase and refurb that has just completed in London. So we've got an investor list of people that have got money that are interested in property, and you can work with them by either selling deals to them and making the cash flow for yourself, or potentially JVing with them so that you're looking at the bigger projects and you're making those bigger projects work, but you're using their money to do that. I hope that helps, Spencer. How can we mitigate against property crashes where values crash quickly as they have in the past? It's a very good question, Jackie. So how do you mitigate for that? Well, what I would say is in the recent dip that we had at the start of COVID, the best way that you can identify that a crash is about to happen or is happening right now is to look at the lenders in the market, because the lenders in the market react the fastest. They have teams of people there to predict what's going to be happening in property. So in the recent dip that happened at the start of COVID, as prices were going down, lenders started to withdraw from the market. And when they were withdrawing from the market, that meant that if you wanted to get a deal done, you needed more investment capital in your pocket to get that deal done, because lenders were either withdrawing from the market or they were making it tougher for you to borrow as much money as you wanted. Now, during that dip, Source Capital kept its loan rates at exactly the same level. We didn't charge any more. We kept our loan to value threshold at exactly the same place to make it easier for franchisees to make money out of that dip in the market. The other thing that I would say is there's been a lot of changes that have happened in the property market this year. For example, the permitted development MA is just one of the things that's changed. But there are other things within the planning system that have changed as well. Now, when you're looking at that planning system, for one example, what happened there was the government announced that it was going to make changes. We at HQ read all about those changes. We took that information, we presented it to the franchisees, but also when we presented that information to the franchisees, we made it clear that these kind of opportunities that have been available will no longer be available because of this change. But these are the opportunities. These are the opportunities that are now available to you. This is what you should be looking at now as this change goes ahead. So anything that happens in the market, we look to inform and educate our franchisees on. And instead of them just looking at that change in the market and thinking, oh my God, there's a change, that's a bad thing, we update our training, we update our documents and contracts to help them see what the opportunity is. Because some people, through, let's take a big crash, 2007, 2008 in the credit crunch, made a massive amount of money in that period of time when they were investing in property. No matter how the market changes, no matter how the local situation changes, no matter how the legislation changes, there is always opportunity. And understanding that you might need to pivot from looking at one particular strategy to looking at another is the work of you and your support person together, because they'll help you identify what the new opportunity is that maybe you hadn't seen for yourself because you were too busy worrying about what the market's going to do. So your support person there, but we at HQ also send out a huge amount of information. Next question from Anonymous. Do you have Leicester available? To be perfectly honest with you, I have no idea. So what I would encourage you to do is use the email address at the bottom of that page, franchise@source.co, and ask that question right there, because our franchise sales executive, Claire, or perhaps one of our franchise managers, Sam and Lindsay, will get back to you and be able to answer that question because they'll look at the stats. So at that point, I don't have any other questions to answer. I hope that's helped you. You can use that email address at the bottom of the page as well if you have any questions on an ongoing basis. So please take note of that email address and then send us any questions that you have. We'd be happy to help you out. But thank you very much for joining me, for you guys that are joining me live, for you guys that are watching on the recording. Thank you very much for taking your time out to watch the recording as well. And I've been Chris Kirkwood, Franchise Director at Source. Have a fantastic rest of your day.